Today on Star Trek Universe Podcast, we try not to repeat ourselves too much while reviewing Discovery 107, Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe Podcast. This is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
So, David C. Robertson, how you doing, buddy?
I'm alright, man.
Yeah. Me too. Actually, I've been incredibly sick.
Oh, that's the opposite of good.
I know, it was awful. I'm good today, but for the last 48 hours, I was like laid up in bed on a bed heater, covered in blankets, and I was still shivering. I was just I had like the flu or something. It was rough.
Yeah, and that's that beatus.
I don't think it was the beatus.
Wait, that's me. Sorry.
I feel like you should know. That's not what the beatus feels like.
No, actually it does. Like
that's one of them.
That's what made me go in.
Oh, okay. No,
it's doing exactly what you're doing, what you were saying.
I had like I had horrible stomach problems. So it was some sort of virus, I think, but it was rough, man. It was rough.
I'm sorry, man.
But I'm okay. I'm good now. Now. And we're back to talk more Discovery. This episode was really exciting.
I don't know that it was exciting for me.
Oh yeah?
It is maybe one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, mine too.
It does feel like classic Star Trek.
For sure. This one's like the most like classic Star Trek that we've seen so far, I think. And it's literally just that Data episode from Next Gen. Told from a different character's perspective, which was interesting. Mm-hmm. I almost wish it had followed Stamets, because I thought Stamets was really entertaining in this episode.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's like Creed on The Office. Creed is like the funniest character on The Office, but only because you almost never hear from him. So every time you do, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel that way about Stamets in the episode. Maybe if he'd been doing his hippy dippy thing too much, it would have been too much. But man, he's like Stamets is the smart guy with the superpower of navigating them around the universe. And yet, I'm finding his real superpower is this weird, trippy empathy that he has developed over the last few episodes.
Yes.
Love it. I love it so much.
I dig it. And, by the way, you bastard, now I want to do an Office rewatch.
Let's do... We'll do 30 minutes on The Office later. We could definitely... We could definitely do more podcasting about The Office than there is The Office.
Probably so.
Oh, man. Great show. I find, personally, that comedies are not the best podcast material, because explaining a joke makes it less funny. And so when you talk about why things are funny, it makes them less funny. And because funny is such a ethereal thing, it's like there's no right answer, so you just end up sounding ill-informed or wrong a lot. Right.
That's one of the reasons I've not taken to doing the Seinfeld podcast like I want to do. Like, I'm just like, because I've listened to a few Seinfeld podcasts. I was just like, this isn't good.
Right.
Like, and it was exactly the kind of thing I was thinking about doing, like digging into the episodes, like where they get the stories, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not interesting.
Interesting. See, I could see that, like, more behind the scenes being interesting. That's one thing, and this was not a comedy by any means. I mean, it had its moments. But Breaking Bad, the last, 2 or 3 seasons of Breaking Bad, someone had the idea to do a Breaking Bad podcast, but they were on the staff of Breaking Bad.
Oh, nice.
So it was kind of earlier days. Podcasting still wasn't as big as it is now. And the guys from Breaking Bad sat down after every production of Breaking Bad and Vince Gilligan and the director of the week and the writer, they did a podcast about that and dug really deep into where they got the idea for shots and stuff, and that was amazing.
Nice.
That's one of the best podcast experiences if you're a Breaking Bad fan. It's super good.
And I am.
Yeah, it's 2 or 3 seasons of that. They just
Interesting.
did it the whole last couple seasons. It's great. Anyway, so let's dive into this episode. Give us that summary, my friend.
That sweet summary.
From what's the website?
Oh, it's CBS All Access wrote the summary.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
But it's also repeated on Memory Alpha, which is just a fantastic fan resource. And we're not affiliated with them other than the fact that I use them all the time for the show.
Yeah. They're
don't
just
know
a
me.
great Star Trek resource, so we plug them as much as we can.
I don't know why I became Mrs. Pancakes. They don't know me. As the crew attempts to let loose at a party, Harry Mudd triggers a time loop that repeatedly destroys the ship and kills the crew in an effort to learn the secret of the spore drive and sell the discovery to the Klingons.
Love it.
Usually the summaries are a little too succinct, a little too short for what actually happened in the episode. This was perfect, I think.
Yeah. A lot of times they don't wrap up what happened, and I almost feel like this story isn't about what happens. It's about the fun of the loop.
A little bit. I think it did progress Michael's and Ash's relationship.
A very minor way. It feels like it progressed it more than it did. It gave us some insight into how they both feel. More than it really progressed it. It did. They talked at the end, and there was a little bit that persisted. But in the loop, you find out they both really like each other. They kiss. Mm-hmm. It's just really nice.
Yeah, it just gave them that little push they needed.
Yeah, it did. And man, him dying by that. What I tried to listen for the name of it. What was the name of the ball?
I don't know.
He gets hit with, and then her eating one. I was like, "What are you doing?"
The dark matter balls, yeah.
Yeah, dark matter balls. That was
they're called.
No, it wasn't. But they are balls of dark matter that cause you to every molecule to be torn apart. I feel like
they're pretty death balls.
Yeah, she could have killed herself some other way.
But it would have been as fun.
No, it wouldn't have been. And
for us.
It kind of had this sense of she felt guilty, like survivor's guilt, where you feel so bad that you watch someone go through something, so you feel like you deserve it. That's kind of how I took that moment a little bit. Because there's definitely more. If she's just trying to avoid pain, which would be logical. There would be a reason to just use some other form of killing yourself.
Yeah.
But she didn't. Okay, so let's talk about Harry Mudd. Mm-hmm. What do you think of Harry Mudd?
I'm a little pissed off, and
okay.
I love Rainn Wilson in the role.
Me too.
I enjoy how they're portraying him. What I'm pissed off about is I've been singing this song since 2009 over on the Trek movie message boards, and basically I got crapped on by every Star Trek fan who ever heard me say it. But I've been championing the idea of a darker version of Harry Mudd. I didn't say Rainn Wilson, but I pretty much described this version of Harry Mudd. I had it for the Kelvin verse, Paul Giamatti.
Ooh.
And everyone was like, Harry Mudd, don't ever do Harry Mudd again. What's wrong with you? You're not a real fan. Yeah, dipshits. I was right.
Well, I guess you've been vindicated. Well, I thought Rainn Wilson is wonderful in the role, and I know you've said you don't think he fits the Harry Mudd of the Prime timeline or whatnot, but I don't care about that as much because I don't have as much real affection for this character from the old days.
Says the man who says that if it's not all canon, there are no stakes. I mean,
right? No, and that's the thing. There's a difference for me between a different portrayal of a character and different facts.
No, I don't see it that way at all.
Yeah, it's weird. We just have different things that we view that are important to maintain the timeline. I like, to me, a hard fact is a hard fact. So the way someone acts can be explained away in lots of different ways, and the way someone looks, if you're just talking about changing actors, like, that doesn't matter to me, like, at all. Like, someone can be blonde, someone can be brown haired, someone can be white, someone can be black. Like, it can be the same universe, and they can be a completely different human being, and for the most part have a different affect, and I can still believe it's the same universe.
Right. I mean,
for me,
it bothers me greatly that, like, the Zephram Cochrane in the original series doesn't match Cromwell in First Contact. Not even in the way they act. Like, the very core of their character is different. I'm sorry,
is Zephram Cochrane from which doesn't match which?
The original series.
Oh, okay.
Because they find Zephram Cochrane on a planet on the original series, and he doesn't look anything like James Cromwell. He doesn't act like James Cromwell. Like, he's very uptight, of high moral fiber, you know. Not at all the radiation poisoned alcoholic.
Yeah, but that's the thing. The plot of First Contact, not to dive too far away from our Discovery episode, but which we will, I'm sure. But
hey, we are who we are, man.
The plot of First Contact is a broken man who stands up and becomes who he needs to be in the moment. Like, and they help him do that. And so, kind of the question is, would he? It's almost a time paradox issue, but like, it's not. They help him get there, and then. In those final moments of First Contact, when he meets the Vulcans, he stands a little taller, and you see the purpose in his eyes, and I think that's the point is, and they say over and over in that movie, like, this is not the man we thought he was.
Right, and I can headcanon it. He becomes the man who he wants to be, you know?
Right, or who history remembers him as, you know. As is someone he became after he accomplished this great feat. He realized he was more important. Like, he had a purpose. I think he was a broken man, and so I don't know. There's things like that just there's lots of headcanon, but I don't even think that's headcanon. I think that's like the plot of the entire movie. For at least his arc in that movie. Has nothing to do with Picard fighting Borg.
No.
Favorite characters in this episode? For me, Stamets, but also Tilly.
She was kind of fun.
I loved Tilly so much. I loved her description of her dating life. It just was unexpected. You think of her as like the nerd with no friends, and then the fact that she just like has been dating a bunch of different guys and trying out all kinds of different relationships. I love it so much. I love that they kind of play against type there. And like, she should be, in any other case, she should be the wallflower, and the main character should be the one that has the game. And I just love, and she almost threatens Burnham. She's like, you better make your move or you're going to lose your chance. And then he walks in the room, and then she's like, my soldier thing is back.
Yeah. Well, he gives that speech. He gives that speech about everyone who's died. And
that's what I mean. He gives a speech about everyone. She says, I used to date lots of soldiers, but lately I've been on a bit of a musician kick. It's like, how many soldiers and how many musicians have you dated to be able to call it like a thing and a kick? Like,
or a phase, I think she said. A phase.
Oh, it's so good. And then my soldier thing is back. That's probably my favorite quote of the episode, to mention quotes too early.
Yeah, I didn't even have that one.
Love it.
It was fun.
Yeah.
For just a minute, they went back into the Michael Burnham is relating to an animal from space thing.
I know. I noticed that. I was like, wait, is this going to be another one of those? I didn't notice it the first time I watched this, but is that what's happening?
Yeah, it's like, hunting isn't the cause of its reduced numbers. It's primarily due to their mating practices or lack thereof. They spend their lives feeding on alpha particles and solar winds. they're often so consumed by this task that they ignore all other instincts, including reproduction. And I do love Gabriel Lorca's little response. That's as depressing a trait as I've ever heard.
Yeah, I liked Lorca in this episode, even though he barely existed in this episode.
Especially since he kept getting killed.
Yeah, he's just like fodder for murder in this episode.
Oh yeah, it's cool. I like it.
There was one subtle reference, at least I felt like it was a subtle reference to some spoiler material that we'll talk to later in this episode for Lorca. But other than that, there wasn't much going on with his character this episode.
I loved seeing Stella, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't remember who the actress was, but they did a really good job of casting her, because we saw androids of her in the original series, but I think it was Mud. But yeah, like, she was obviously like 10 years older, way meaner. Like, the little android comes to life and starts going, hardcore, you know?
Right.
She actually looked like her, and you can see, like, the seeds of that coming out, where she's just like that.
She says hardcore at one time, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
That's super fun.
They did such a good job with casting her. They did, I think, they got closer to her original series counterpart than they did him, but,
yeah,
you know, even with him, with this episode, I could see more of him becoming Roger Carmel in a later iteration, you know? Right.
And I whether he, you know, I as we've discussed over and over, I just don't mind the differentiation of a new character, new actor taking on the same character and doing it slightly differently, because it's not that interesting to make an artist just do an impersonation. It's more for me about like getting the heart of the character and what that character means and does. And I thought this was just a super interesting interpretation. And just super fun. The glee at which he like kills Lorca, the glee at which he treats just everyone. He's constantly making self-referential things to the future that he knows will happen. He's like, I'm not going to tell you again. And he's like, actually, you will. Just stuff like that was a lot of fun. Just really, really fun.
And, you know, I noticed this time how much Rainn Wilson was really, like, evoking Roger Carmel's attitude and his speech patterns and stuff. And it's often been said that, like, Mud was a silly villain, and he wasn't very dark. He was more of a kidsy kind of villain, but he really wasn't. Like, the first time we see him in Mud's Women, he is literally giving highly addictive drugs to women who have aged past their prime so that they will be beautiful again. And it's not only addictive because they want to stay pretty, it's addictive because it hurts when they run out. And he's selling them to men on, like, mining planets. Like, he is literally, like, selling women to slavery, and he has them hooked on drugs.
Yikes.
That is not a cartoony, nice villain.
No. He's bright and colorful in a way, and kind of, like, gregarious, but that's not... Still, that doesn't make him a light villain.
He's an absolute bastard.
But, you know, back then, people didn't care if you hurt women. He wasn't, like, hurting men or something serious.
I disagree. But, okay.
So I thought that the time loop was super interesting, although obviously has been done before. The only novel idea I thought in this one was the little killing ball, the ball of dark matter that destroyed your cells one at a time.
Right.
And you had to feel it all.
He found it in Lorca's little dungeon, his little torture chamber.
Yeah, that's pretty telling right there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Pretty telling.
And I would point out in a previous episode, we were talking about what that could be. Mud does call it Lorca's torture chamber, I think.
Right. Yeah, Mud. I think Mud recognizes how dark that room is. Pretty a dark room, even more than the crew does.
I'm not even sure anyone but Landry knew about it.
Well,
Landry and Michael Burnham.
He brings Michael in there pretty readily, though, so I didn't feel like he was keeping it a secret.
Yeah, but he thinks she's a kindred spirit.
Does he?
Or he thought so at the time, I thought.
He thinks she's a kindred spirit. Okay, we're going to have to talk about this in the after spoiler content time, because, all this stuff is cluing into Lorca might have a darker past or future, but it's all just hearsay, and I don't want to say whether he does or doesn't, even though we've seen the rest of the season. So let's get through this, and we'll definitely swing back.
Okay.
Let's get to a few more of these. I really liked Lorca and Saru had some really fun interactions. This is one of my quotes as well, but he says, "Bring the fish in," or something like that. And he says, "Technically, it's not a fish. It's..." And then he just stops himself because he knows that Lorca's going to Lorca gives him a look, and that's all he has to do to say, "Shut the up." Shut the hell up, Saru. Any other characters you want to touch on before we move to quotes?
Not without getting into quotes.
Okay. Well, let's move to quotes. We should really get a music stinger for quotes.
Why?
I'll work on it. Say no more, Dave. I know you're excited about it. I'll work on it.
My official statement, as the internet might say, why though?
What's your top quote of this episode?
The thing that made me laugh the hardest was when Ash Tyler says, your friend's subtle, and Michael Burnham says, inappropriately so.
Yeah, that's real good. In a similar vein, one of my favorites was when Stamets runs over and says, "I just spotted the hottest guy over there, and apparently he's in a band."
Yeah.
And sends Tilly running off. Really liked that one.
I really loved Dance With Me for Science from Paul.
Yeah.
And
we didn't touch on that scene yet, and I just want to say that scene is really touching. And one of my quotes is the one we didn't hear. And it's actually, I guess, the only quote is, "I'm sorry." But when she whispers in his ear, and then she stands back, and he says, "I'm sorry." And then later you find out what she said is, "I've never been in love." It's just so sweet and tragic and hard to hear, and it makes me love Burnham more, and it makes me love Stamets for how sincerely he felt that "I'm sorry." I just loved that. That's one of my quotes too.
Yeah, that was good. I love when Stamets shoots Mud and then goes, "As days go, this is a weird one."
Yeah, that's actually Tyler says something very similar. This isn't one of the ones I wrote down, but Tyler says something very similar when suddenly Burnham just unloads all this information to him, and then she says, we're in the middle of a time loop, the Harry Mudd is here, you were a prisoner with him, I like you, you like me, and he's like, this got weird. I just like that a lot.
Yeah.
My last quote is, and it should be the worst quote of the episode. Like, I recognize that it's probably the worst line in the episode, but it's why I like it. I'm not mad, I'm Mud.
Yeah, I hated that.
I think that's such a bad line, but Rainn Wilson pulls that line off. and it made me buy him as the character even more because he can say that cheesy of a line, and to me it worked. Mm-hmm. Even though it's the worst line in the episode, it still worked because Rainn Wilson's awesome.
Yeah. I feel like that line is the hint. That line, and when he's like trying to sell when he's telling the computer to send the message to the Klingons, courtesy of Harry Mudd. I'm like, those are inklings towards his later self.
Right.
Because let's face it, we all get cornier as we get older.
Yeah.
I'm way cornier than I was 10 years ago. Like, I'm way more open to puns. I say ridiculous, awful, stupid, corny shit all the time, and I'm pleased as punch with myself.
Right.
10 years ago, I would have been embarrassed, and my past self is just looking at me going, what the hell is wrong with you? And I'm like, you know what, dude? I'm, 35 and married. I don't give a shit. I'm going to have fun now.
Yeah, totally.
I'm going to enjoy my life.
Yeah, at some point you just got to let all that go and have fun.
Yeah, so I think that might be what Mudd did.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say.
Well, he also was driven crazy and living on this planet with this lady, with Stella. How about some trivia, Dave?
All right, so I don't have a lot of trivia for this episode. There was kind of a fair amount, but I didn't find it interesting.
Only bring what you find interesting.
I know, man. That's what I'm trying to do. I did notice and enjoy that Mudd's space helmet looked Andorian.
Yeah,
and they did intend it to be that way. And they were inspired by the Orion disguised as an Andorian in Journey to Babel. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
Aaron Harbert's, this is my favorite bit of trivia for the show so far that I've gotten. Aaron Harbert's stated that the part of the motivation for making this episode was financial. He says, in terms of the time loop, we were desperate to save money. I'm not going to lie.
Huh. That makes sense. That just reminds me of how much I think that a lot of times those restraints are what create really fun art. Like, this is a great, fun episode, and it's like that constraint is why. Yeah,
I enjoyed it. This is interesting. The star dates given in this episode, 2136.8 to 2137.2, are chronologically more advanced than the first on-screen 5-digit star date seen in the original series Where No Man Has Gone Before, which was 1312.4, and it still takes place 9 years prior to that episode.
Huh.
They're also higher than the stardate in the following episode, Civis Pacem Parabellum.
So those are the first two aired Star Trek episodes?
No, the latter episode I just mentioned was a Discovery.
Oh, okay.
But Where No Man Has Gone Before was the first Kirk episode.
Right, and then I guess they just changed the numbering system after the second episode. Is that what we're saying?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right. Awesome, man. Thanks for those trivia pieces. Let's get into some spoilers.
Okay.
I really
what you want to talk about, Boo?
Wish we had a spoiler sound,
I'm good without it.
All right. I'll work on it.
Whenever I'm listening to a podcast and I hear a sound indicating in the next segment, I just kind of go,
I like them.
It bums me out.
I'm a fan. All right. So what were we talking about earlier? There was something we were getting at with Lorca and we were talking about how he brought Burnham in and to his little torture chamber. Wasn't there someone else with her in there at the end when they were like coaxing it out or something like that?
Coaxing it out?
Yeah, because Tilly goes in there too. Tilly is in the room with her when she goes in to give it some mycelium spores.
Okay.
So I don't think it's a secret that room's not a secret. Also,
we don't know because Tilly's also very close to the Spore Project.
Sure. But she's not close to the Lorca's dungeon project.
I mean, at some point they're obviously intersecting.
I mean, in this particular circumstance they are, but I don't think they have in the past. It just seems to me that he brought in a person who was a mutineer who'd only been on the ship for like 10 hours, and he was like, "Hey, come into my dungeon. It's a secret." Like, I just don't see. I
don't think that means that he's got everybody in there.
I'm not saying everybody. It's still his private space, but I don't think he's obviously not keeping it a big secret. If he's led Tilly, Landry, and Burnham in there, Landry's pretty low level. Burnham is a total X factor, and Tilly's like, Landry. I think you're right. Landry, I think, is totally on his side, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about him introducing Burnham in there, and I don't think he thought she was I don't think he thought she was actually a kindred spirit. That's what he told her. That was his convincing her to follow him. What I think was what he was doing was he was taking advantage of her like lack of purpose and trying to give her a purpose and trying to give her give her a place to belong again so that she would be there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't she's very valuable in the Dark Universe, in the future
universe?
Yeah, sorry, in the Mirror Universe, not the weird Universal monster universe.
That's what I thought about or think about every time you say it. You said Dark Universe a few times, and I'm like, the Mummy? What?
Sorry, Mirror Universe. I think of Dark Victory, the book.
Yeah,
that occurs
that's fair.
in the Mirror Universe. In the Mirror Universe, she is Giorgio's daughter figure as well, and Giorgio's like the queen or whatever.
Right.
So.
Emperor, whatever.
I think, the Emperor. I think he's trying to get close to Burnham. The reason he saw Burnham latched on and brought her in and was so close to her is he's trying to, prime her to be a leveraged chip in the future in the Mirror Universe.
Yeah.
And so all of I don't think he thinks she's a kindred spirit at all. I think he's doing whatever he has to do to get close to her.
All right. I don't remember the last episode. I don't remember the future well enough. Right.
We just, it's a little fuzzy in my head too. I just know that we know certain things. So one of the biggest, one of the lines in here that there wasn't much in this episode that really warrants talking about spoilers. But one line I thought was interesting is when they see the whale, they're like, "Yellow alert," and they're like, "Oh, it's just a whale." And then he says, "All right, cancel yellow alert, set a course for," and then they have to tell him, "Hey, no, Federation code da says we have to take it to, help this creature."
Right,
it's an endangered species.
Endangered species, yeah.
And he says, "Oh, well, do what you will." And then in a later iteration, he's more hesitant, and Saru says, "You could be court-martialed. Our captain will be court-martialed if we don't do this." And then Lorca's like, "Oh, yeah, right. That's what I meant. Yeah, we got to take this thing in." And I think it's just interesting that he doesn't know that code. Like, I don't think he knows that Federation policy.
Yeah.
I think he studied as much as he could, but like he's pretty brand new to this universe, and he's like trying to bone up, but he's still not perfect. And I think it's funny when those little moments show up that Lorca shows that he is not on the level, but it's so subtle. It just seems like, oh, he's just a jerk that disregards the lives of the species. But no, he's like, I don't think he knew that code.
Yeah, maybe. I could also see, I could see Kirk doing that. Honestly, I really could. I could see him saying, not maybe blowing it off.
I could see him complaining about it for sure.
I could see him like is there any way we can not do this? And then, like, Spock say, well, Federation law does say blah, blah, blah. All right.
Right. Yeah, I can totally see that. But in this case, I think legitimately Lorca didn't know. That's my personal view of it.
Okay.
Definitely doesn't have to be the case. Any other spoilery moments you want to talk about?
Lorca was looking at his multiple universe map again this episode. Like, you could see it hanging out.
Interesting.
In the background.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. Do you think that Ash Tyler being Voke is why he falls in love with Burnham, or was that part of the plan?
Again, I don't remember the next episodes as well as...
So we know...
I don't remember.
I'm just... so why did they have Ash Tyler placed on Discovery? And the only thing I can think is they were trying to get back at the murderer of T'Kuvma to prove that the Klingon should follow Voke, that he avenged T'Kuvma's death. That's at least that's what I'm trying to explain away this plot a little bit.
I don't. The way I'm going to choose to remember it right now, which might change as I watch subsequent episodes, is that I think that was an accident. I think he saw whatever he saw in L'Rell as Voke. He also sees in Michael Burnham.
Interesting. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I think it's very possible that this is all part of the programmed response for Voke to get close. They programmed this Ash Tyler character to get close to Burnham. I think it's part of his deep cover. But that's I'm not sure. We'll see.
Maybe. I mean, but that doesn't speak to her own attraction to him.
Sure. No, it doesn't. I mean, he is a tall drink of water.
He is. He is.
And yeah. I guess that's part of the interesting thing. I don't know.
I mean, I'll be interested to see the future episodes, because I just honestly don't remember how all of that played out.
Right.
It's...
The two big things I remember are that
for me.
Lorca is from the Dark Mirror universe, and that Ash is Voke. And it's like, those two big revelations make me look at all these episodes slightly differently. And so all the stuff that I'm trying to kind of sort through, I just kind of keep filtering it through those two filters and being like, okay, those two big surprises that are coming, what does that mean for this?
Well, see, I was spoiled on Voke anyway, because I saw not really spoiled, but I saw the conjecture.
Yeah, see, I avoided the conjecture on everything until I listened to one podcast about Discovery, and it was the week before a lot of this stuff was revealed. I listened to one podcast, and without a spoiler warning or without hey, we're going to do a bunch of rampant speculation or whatever, they opened the podcast with, so everybody knows that Ash Tyler is Voke and that Lorca is from the Mirror Universe. That's how they opened the episode. And I was like, I didn't know any of that. And I didn't even have time to pause it before you spoiled two humongous things. I'm mad. I'd never listen to that podcast again. I was real mad at it.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of weird, like, basically they just screwed up. They messed up with the names of cast members and stuff, and they tried to make it like, the guy playing Vogue is a different actor, and...
So was it the same actor?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the Ash Tyler actor, but they gave him a different name. But that name only goes to an IMDb that doesn't have any credits. And there was a bunch of weird stuff. I can't remember it all, but they just messed up. Like they underestimated the Star Trek fans.
Right. Well, yeah, that's easy to do. We will dig in. Anyway, anything else you want to say about this episode, my man?
I did. I meant to say it earlier. I did love when Harry Mudd referred to that guy as random communications officer man.
Yeah, it was great because it was a very meta threat. It was like, you realize it was almost pointing. It was almost looking at the camera and saying, "You realize you're not important enough to matter if I murder you, right?" Like, it's so good. It's so good.
Yep. Yep. I wish I had more to say about this episode because it's, like I said, it's maybe my favorite episode of the season.
Oh, I think we've done a pretty good job breaking it down and talking about these little bits. And as we said about a totally different subject at the top of this, a lot of this episode is comedy, and it's not really fun to break down comedy. It's just not really the thing to do. But there's enough meat on this thing's bones as well to break down. So I enjoyed. This is fun. This has been a fun conversation. But I don't want to. Really, a lot of this thing is just Rainn Wilson. It is literally like a stake. We all know that he's not going to win. We know he's not going to destroy the Discovery. So this episode is more about character development and just having a good time.
Yeah.
And as often time loop episodes should be. There are some bad time loop episodes where it's way too much stakes and not enough fun. This is maybe my favorite time loop episode. It's really good.
I'd have to go back and look at the other time loop episodes.
Yeah, I probably would too before I make. That's why I included the maybe in there.
But here's the real question: is it more fun than Groundhog Day?
Of course not.
Yeah, that is the correct answer.
Of course not.
We love Star Trek on this show, but it doesn't override Bill Murray.
Mm-mm. If Bill Murray had been Harry Mudd here, oh man, like an '80s Bill Murray as Harry Mudd, that would have been the thing.
Oh man, yeah,
that's some dream casting. Maybe we can do that Marvel thing to his face and have him be Harry Mudd on some future incarnation.
The what thing to his face?
The Marvel thing, where they de-age people.
Oh, okay.
They've been doing it for a few years now, where they just have actors play the previous version of themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't know what you're talking about. I just, that didn't.
Yeah, it's like a technology they've been perfecting over the last few years, and so far they've only done it in short scenes. They did it with Ant-Man, Michael Douglas. Right,
Michael Douglas, yeah.
Michael Douglas. They did it with Robert Downey Jr. They did it with the guy who played Ego, which I'm spacing right now.
Kurt Russell. And then, but those were all like one scene in a movie. But coming up, we've got Captain Marvel coming out this year, and it's going to have. It looks, according to the trailer, like Sam Jack, like a '90s era Sam Jackson is going to be a main character in the movie, which is insane. Yeah, he looks great in those trailers too.
Looks so good. There's no Uncanny Valley anymore. Like the Michael Douglas looked great. I feel like the RDJ one, which I think was the earliest one, still had some Uncanny Valley happening.
Yeah.
But like they've perfected it in a way that's really badass.
Yeah, looking at that Captain Marvel trailer, I was just like, holy shit, it's Zeus from the third Die Hard.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Get ready, William Shatner. Get ready. Now's your time.
Yeah, oh man. If they had Shatner come back to actually play Captain Kirk at some point in Discovery, I'd be so on board. Like it would almost make it worth it to me that they did this prequel thing.
I can't remember the actual quote. I didn't include it in our news, the upcoming news episode, but they did ask him if he would reprise his role in Discovery or anywhere else, and he said, sure, if they'd pay me a lot of money, yeah.
Oh, come on, man. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole.
Are you unfamiliar with William Shatner?
No, I know he's an asshole. But, yes, they've made a lot of money off of you, but man, you made your whole life off of them. Off of us, the fans. Like, You're just a part of the ecosystem. Be a part of the ecosystem. You still make tons of money off the thing. Being in one more will only serve you well.
You are not Chris Pine.
Pay him, pay him fairly, sure, but don't just be an asshole about it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back with more episodes in the coming weeks, and we'll finish this Discovery rewatch very soon, because the new episodes of Discovery are coming up, man. They're coming up.
Yep, they're barreling down upon us.
All right, guys. Peace.
Live long and prosper, y'all.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.